Okay. Hello and welcome to Let's Drone Out. Thank you for joining us. Today is Thursday the 9th of the 12th, 2021, and it is a good day. You joined by
Who's echoing back?
I didn't hear that. Something happened then.
Yeah, same. I didn't hear it. Someone's echoing.
I know, it's not me.
It's better now. Right, you were joined by what?
Everyone's favourite curry kitten?
Oh, that's me. Hello.
Oh my Google bird? I think. Is. Okay, and Stephen.
Hello.
My darling wife, Tony.
Bonjour.
With Coco, his doggo. Can you give us like a little pretend woof as if she'd done it? Okay, fantastic. And our Lord and Master Frank, and I'm bright until I fly.
Hello.
Hello. And let's start the show. Stephen, you ready? Start milking.
All on you now.
I'll give over.
Yeah.
I've
We'd
got my dinner.
better
here.
introduce who we've got on first.
Yep.
This man over here, Omi Googly Bird, or better known as Rupert, is the many holders of world records for FPV planes. He basically flies them very, very fast, and I thought he'd be a great person to get on because aside from the fact that it can be exciting to fly wings, lots of people are probably interested to know how you make them go faster and stuff. And I did have a quick video to show. I think loads of people, like over 100,000 people, have watched your last video, Rupert. With that
in 2 weeks.
thing going really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But going back to the olden days, when you were flying measly 6S fun jets, I wanted to show the launch to people about how you did it, because there is so much torque roll when you're winding up your motors. It looks pretty interesting. So I've got my video up quickly. This is from one of our Mad Dogs meets many years ago, and before Rupert even gets to the part where he throws the plane, what he has to do is pace up and down, psyching himself up. Because to say it's a bit of a handful, like, I am a terrible line of sight flyer. I can barely sort of throw it and get back on the sticks. This is how Rupert launches it. You won't be able to hear it because the sound doesn't come through. But that's what it does. It just rolls over and over.
Wow.
And then the other thing Rupert seems to have is magic eyes, because I can't see it. And then he can see it. And then all you see is the thing come past at like 200 miles an hour, like a couple of inches off the ground, a bit like an Exocet missile.
That's cool.
And yeah, this is the sort of thing he does. And this is why Rupert's kind of the one person who I'm sort of always excited to see flying line of sight, because it actually makes it look exciting. Normally I think line of sight's boring, it's going around in circles, go to FPV. When you do that, when you have magic eyes and then this missile just goes choom, comes through, it's amazing. And if you want to watch that video with sound on it's on my channel, you will also hear it come back doing a glide, and that is one of the most amazing noises as well. Just the sound of it displacing the air without motor, it's just like, woo, it's amazing. Welcome, Rupert. Our regular question for all guests is, how did you get into RC flying? How did you get into it? What's your history?
How did I get into it? Hello, everybody. When I was about 8 or something, I think my dad took me to a model club back in the 80s, and we learnt with a high wing trainer. He built it, I flew it, nitro plane, and learnt to fly that. Learnt to crash it. We learnt to repair it. But I don't know. It was kind of boring. I started to get a bit bored of it, and so my dad got me a thing called a Mirus, which was a delta wing, kind of engine at the front, but a delta wing and a tail at the back. And it was like 110 10 miles an hour, probably, I should think, but it really like gave me a kick. I really enjoyed it compared to flying trainers. So I crashed that in the end, and then kind of gave up modelling for years, really, until what I call the Hobby King era, when all of a sudden LiPo batteries and really cheap prices from China and actually quite good equipment became sort of started to become more mainstream. I kind of, it was actually Mike Brewer of
Hold out your hands. Him.
yeah, that's him. Yeah, he flew at one of our local model clubs, and like 10 years ago, he had a quadcopter, and he had a camera on it, and he had a pair of goggles, and he was flying it around, and I thought that's crazy. Like, he's actually flying on board that thing, and I put the goggles on, and I was just blown away. Obviously, it was 10-year-old tech. It was tiny little screens and a little camera, and it was all over the place and whatever. But the fact was, like, he was flying it remotely, and I've always wanted to fly, but kind of don't really fancy general aviation because obviously the cost and everything like that. So this gives you a kind of way to put your head in the sky. And he said it's called FPV, and I was like, wow. So straight on YouTube, what is FPV? And then kind of went from there, really, in the same interest in, I flew a Bixler to start with, and then I put the two and two together. Like, I really enjoyed going fast, and I want to do FPV, and it's just snowballed from there, really.
How did you practice the launches? Because I mean, that slower launch that Curry showed us looked incredibly difficult, and when you're dropped from the quad and the power kicks in, it's just squirreling around. How do you do that?
To go fast, you need a small plane, and with a small plane with a lot of power, it's going to torque roll. So there's a kind of tipping point where you haven't got a lot of power and you haven't got a lot of weight, and you can throw it overhand and it will just fly out your hand straight. Then there's a point beyond that where it hasn't got enough power to go vertically, but when you launch it, it's got so much power still, it rolls over. So that really doesn't work. So it's best to miss that step out and go straight for something really powerful that will vertically launch. And whilst it looks scary, and most people that can fly line of sight can fly a vertical roll. So it's just a case of starting your flight with a vertical roll. So, as soon as you let go of the plane, it's gyroscopically keeping itself straight up near enough. It'll follow a bit of an arc, but pretty much it goes straight up. And when it's up to airspeed, you just come out of the roll and fly away. So everything happens quite high off the ground. If you launch overhand, you're very close.
So you just want to get that 50, 100 meters of altitude right away.
Straight away, and it's the ground that's going to cause you problems. So it seems like just getting right in the air is a good way to do it.
And when you're doing the opposite, and you're dropping off a quad.
Yeah, so dropping off the quad. It's this plane is a lot heavier, so it's got a lot. It's 9 kilowatts as opposed to sort of 2 or 3. So the energy in the blades is pretty scary. If you run it, it really does not make you want to hold it. It's pretty terrifying to hear running. So I didn't really fancy holding it with the carbon blades. They're a bit of an unknown at that power. So, I think they'd probably go through me and come out the other side. So the drone really is the only option. And that's pretty easy. Just send it up. It's a DJI controller, so it just goes straight up from where you took off, and you just pull the release lever and off it drops. And then when you open the power, there's still that same thing where it'll kick around a couple of times, and then once it gets enough airspeed for the control surfaces to take over.
Sounds a bit more dangerous, though, because you're pointed at the ground with the power on at that point, waiting for it to even out, aren't you?
You've got airspeed, so the main thing for a plane is obviously height and airspeed. If you haven't got either of those, you're gonna hit the ground. So dropping from the drone, the first thing that happens is it starts to pick up airspeed, and it's already high off the ground. So you're high off the ground and you're moving fast, so there's no reason why it won't fly. So
okay,
there's not a lot.
You don't have the problem with the rolling and waiting for it to come out the roll as much.
I did on one of the drops, actually, with a 2 rearward CG. It took too long for it to pull its nose down, so I do run it slightly higher, slightly more nose heavy, so that when it drops, it distinctly falls nose down and begins to get airspeed. So,
do you instantly have control because there's air moving over the surfaces as you fall, or do you still need speed?
Pretty quickly, yeah. I mean, it obviously it'll fall a little bit before it starts to put its nose down, and once the nose is down, then the airspeed picks up, and you've not got enough control to pull up, but you start to be able to roll the way you want to go. And
because like the video that I saw, you had some really low lying like mist or cloud or whatever, right. And you dropped, and it was like, what is this guy doing? You can't see anything. Like, are you mental?
Yeah,
And
the
then-
drop. So the drop was okay. That was fine. It was just once I climbed up away from the drop, it was cloud was at 300 meters. So just hit that.
So a lot of people think, oh, it's good flying planes because you like fly for 40 minutes and stuff like that. Now, on that Funjet thing, I had a feel of that battery after you flew it for 3 minutes, and it hurt my hand because it was roasting hot. You get, what, 1 or 2 minutes out of those 6S flights, and that 14S one, that it was pretty much done, wasn't it, after those couple of runs?
Yeah, so the one that you saw fly, that is actually a minute of full throttle. So from the minute, I don't take my finger off the throttle because it's easier just to keep the airspeed up rather than slow down the speed up. So launch it and just keep it wide open and just do the 1 minute flight and then sort of land it. So that will do 1 minute straight, that's plenty. I can your brain's had enough at that point.
You're sweating.
It's enough. A minute is actually enough.
What did you
1
start
minute.
with then? Did you start 4S and then go 6 and then think, oh, I'm going to go make my own batteries and go higher?
Yeah. I started on 3S actually in a Funjet at 100 amps going through a Dean's connector, and it was desoldering the connectors. So obviously,
No way.
wattage is what you want. You want horsepower, you want wattage going to the motor. So you can either do it through amps with low voltage, or you can do it using a higher voltage and lower amps. And that does, if you go with that route, it means that the infrastructure in the plane is a lot lighter as well, smaller connectors, lighter wires and everything. So it was a logical route to go up in voltage. But obviously the choice of components limits sort of, where you can go, and 6S stuff's really cheap. I mean, that plane that you saw, Wayne, was probably £220 all in, the plane, the servos, motor, ESC and everything. But when you step up sort of above 6S into 12S and things, ESCs are a couple of £100 each. So the whole thing sort of steps up in seriousness.
Yeah. We were just talking about some of the components before we started, and one of the things that some people may not consider is the servos you use on that plane. Because if you use your regular 9-gram servo and you suddenly say, I want to do something, it's just not going to work. So those were like 50 quid servos a piece, weren't they?
Yeah.
That can
How
actually
much?
move those surfaces.
Yeah, 50 quid a servo, but there are only 2 of them. It's not got a tail, so it's better like that. But yeah, you can't really spend enough money on servos, to be honest. I think that, I see a lot of planes where people say, oh, it's, this airframe's rubbish, it doesn't fly very well. And they've got 3 quid servos in it, which don't center, they're not kind of linear, whatever. If you use expensive servos, everything flies nicer. It really is a fact.
Yeah, it's like when people make their cars go faster but don't upgrade the brakes. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. I think with quad flying, you guys are very adept at tuning, and you're very critical of it. And you would notice kind of inconsistency with control reaction and stuff. And that is the case with planes. If your control linkages or the servos aren't up to the job, then there's going to be erratic movement that you're not putting into it. If the servos aren't strong enough, once you sort of go over a certain speed, the control will be less, will be inconsistent again. So it really is.
That's the other thing as well. Is then you've got these really powerful servos, and then you've got to have a control linkage that doesn't just like bend and flex. What do you do for that? How do you make sure that you've actually getting the output of the servo into the control surface?
Physically test it. I mean, they hold the control surface and give the servo full power and just make sure that everything,
But if you just got like massive hinges and massive control rod bits between your servos and the control
it's nothing. It's nothing huge, but it's all straight. There's nothing with a sort of bend in it or anything like that. It has got. I'm just trying to think. The jet, the one with the planes are both the same, but one has a turbine engine on it, one has an electric motor on it. And I've got slightly different linkages and servos in each one, but basically it's the same. It's a carbon control horn bonded into the elevon, and on the jet, what I've actually done is bent the control rod, pushed it through the control horn, actually tapped a thread on the end of it, and then wound a nut onto it. So it's not a ball joint or anything like that. It is just a rod going through the control link and through the horn, and then with a nut on it, and then I soldered the nut on afterwards. So I copied it from, I saw a plane at Weston Park. It was an F5 pylon plane or something, and that's what they'd done. They just got the control link straight through the horn. with a nut on it, and you can tighten it all up nicely and get the play out of it, and there's enough movement for the kind of angles involved. So,
is that one of the other ones that you can hear from like the other end of the western part?
Yeah.
So I must talk about the noise. After Mini Air Show, I wrote an article for this magazine, RC M&E. It's very traditional, this one, and in fact they had a survey about their readers, and it's like the main readers, 31% of them are 61 to 70 years old, and then the other load of them are 51 to 60. So it's very much, this magazine may not exist in a few years because they'll all be dead. But I wrote this article, and it was about, it's called Sympathy for the Devil, which wasn't my title, and it was about quads and plane people crossing over. And look, Tony, there's a picture of you. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
And we wrote about MA4, and the editor, after I wrote it, said, could you get some more opinion from somebody more in the sort of traditional model flying? And I talked to a guy called Ray Cox. Ray Cox was the he's sort of chairman of the Spitfire Flying Club at Popham, and something else, is he, Frank, as well?
He's sort of the head of the aero modelers, yeah.
So he was a good guy to talk to, I thought, about, like, because I thought if he was going to be angry about quads and stuff, he'd tell us what his concerns were, and he only had nice things to say about them. But there was a paragraph, he told me, and it didn't go in the magazine, but here's what he said. See if you can guess who he's talking about. He said, only a couple of concerns about the event, which I've raised with Andrew and Mike Pearson. I guess that's you, Frank.
Yep, that'd be
One. But number two is we need additional litter bins. We'll ignore that bit. Number one, use of the very high speed and noisy flying wing. Even with the 30-metre boundary by the camping zone, any break of this model at speeds it achieve can be hazardous, and the noise risks a complaint from our nearest neighbour, although none was forthcoming. Who do you think he may have been talking about? So, in fact, the whole thing of MA4 was, it's like, oh, those quad people are okay, but that guy with the flying wing, he's a danger.
Yeah, but bearing in mind, this is like where we had an X-Class, at least one X-Class flying around. We had
jets, all
jets,
the turbines.
Yeah, we had the fixed, the sort of the race course, the racetrack flying at the same time as all the fixed wing stuff going on. We had the freestyle competition going on, and all that kind of stuff happening, and no A certs or B certs for any of that kind of side of things. And then the one sort of bit that got the backup for these old boys
was a guy with a plane.
Yeah, So I took it to I took that Funjet to a model show in a place called Morton in Marsh, and it's a very old model club, one of the oldest in the country, I think. And it's I would say that most people are over 70 there. And I had been to this show before, and I said to Adele, "Come on, let's go there, and I'll take the Funjet, and I'll just see if I can fly it." And it was a £5 to pay, and I thought, "Go on, I'll give this a go in front of these old guys." And did a flight, and as I landed, somebody came up to me and said, "You can't come back again with that." I said,
That's brilliant, though.
We had a complaint already,
and then just leave.
Flew for 1 minute, and they'd already had a complaint from somebody that owned horses next door. So, yeah.
Oh well, I can see.
It is completely insane, and it's mostly to do with the fact that it's a very small prop spinning at like sub-supersonic speed. So one of my questions, as someone I'd like to go fast, is that one thing you might think you do to make a plane go fast is put a bigger prop on, because you think, oh, if I've got say a 1000 kV motor and it's turning a little prop, then if I put a big prop on, it's going to go faster. But that's not how it works, is it?
No, I think there's two things really. I'm not a scientist and I have no formal training, so anything that comes out of my mouth, take with a pinch of salt. But basically, as I understand it, that you've got thrust speed and you've got thrust volume, and you've got drag on the plane. So it's a kind of balance between all three of those. You need enough thrust volume to overcome the drag, so that no matter how fast the gas comes out the back, if there's not enough of it in volume, it just won't push the plane past the drag. So it's finding the right size prop for the airframe, spinning it as fast as you can get to a point, and then dialing the speed in with the pitch, basically. So it isn't just about a bigger prop; it's about finding a prop that when you're going to try and go at 200 miles an hour, you need a pitch speed of say 300 miles an hour, and then enough volume to push that plane at 200 miles an hour. I don't know if I'm making sense. Really, it's kind of hard.
I understand what you're saying.
Kind of hard to explain, but you can see from the results that sometimes that you've got an excess of thrust speed, but that the plane isn't going any faster, so it means that there's not enough area. So you put more area on, and then sometimes you can see that the plane's almost going at the pitch speed of the propeller. So it's almost going at the same, which means you could get away with more pitch speed. So it's just a balance.
So when you're running 6S on that, what size prop are you running, and what kV is the motor?
So I always try to run basically the only commercially available props really are square pitch, aren't they? So 6.6, 6.5 by 6.5, 7 by 7. So I was using those kind of props before, and now I use a 7 by 14 prop. So I forgot what your question was. That
and what kV was the motor on this 6S?
So I've run two different kVs at 6S, 1900 kV and 2700. But what I've learned is the main thing to avoid seems to be supersonic prop tips, because it just makes a lot of noise and you lose a lot of.
How do you avoid that? That was going to be my question. Like, how do you know when you're hitting supersonic speeds, and how to choose a prop that avoids that?
I guess you can calculate it or do an RPM measurement, but basically you can hear it. You know, the difference between something that's supersonic and something that's below it is when it's coming with the supersonic prop tips. When the plane's coming towards you, you can hear the echoes of that disc of pressure wave coming off the prop as the plane's coming towards you, and that disc is
like a pre-echo.
Hedges, yeah, exactly that. Hedges and trees. That echo is louder than the plane, so you almost hear those echoes coming before you hear the plane. If you see what I mean, the noise from the front of the plane is not as much as is coming down below it in this disc, so it's pretty easy to hear. I've got some good examples on my YouTube channel of when it was. Is there any way I can link a video? You could link a video to show, because it's probably the best example.
Yeah, sure.
Can you look in my channel, Wayne, or do I put it on here? Or?
Exceedingly loud aircraft. Let's do it.
I can find it. Or can everybody share a screen? Frank, does everybody get the share thing?
I think.
Yeah,
so.
I can. What video do you want?
It's called 264 mile an hour overhead or something. I think it's like 10 videos back or something.
264 R plane sound, amazing sound.
So that's it. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. That gives a really good example of these echoes coming.
I had a look on your RC groups thread, and it seems that you're ordering rather specialist propeller blades one at a time now, and clamping those onto the hub yourself, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so the limitation comes obviously with a 7x7. I can't spin it any faster because it goes supersonic. So I've run out of thrust speed that I can get. So the only way to get more is to go more in pitch. So now I'm using a 7x14, and obviously they're not commercially available. So there's guys in Germany that make those speed planes over there. So I've kind of starting to buy those now. They're like 50 quid a prop. So for two blades, it's 50 quid plus the hub and everything. So you got to look after them. But pitches go up to in 7-inch, about 14 pitches, about as much as I could find. But the next project I'm going to build, hopefully, I'm looking at a 10 by 31. So it's a lot more, and 15 or 20 kilowatts to drive it. So the thing with the over square props is the amount of power it takes to drive them is really crazy. You know, it's
15 to 20 kilowatts. So you're already on an APD 200 ampere, and you're pushing 14S through it off a custom 2 amp hour pack that you built. Yeah. How the hell are you going to go up from that in kilowatts?
20S, 24S or something like that. So again, I only use small packs, but a lot of them. So in the next project, it's going to be essentially just a wing, no fuselage, and the cells are going to be laid out in the wing to try and just reduce any frontal area possible, so make the thing as thin as possible. So I'll split probably 1800 milliamp hour packs into 2 S's, lay them out in the wing, and have 24 cells in total. So.
Sorry, I'm just downloading your video.
No
Yeah.
jump then. 14 straight to.
Why are you downloading
not
it?
going to 18. Just go.
So-
via
How do you
a file. 'cause
how
it
do you
wants
lay
to
them
do-
out for charging? Do you have them just as twos for charging, or what?
No, so that's an interesting question. Actually, it's quite a difficult problem to overcome because with say 14S, you'd have to have a lot of interconnects in the battery to bring all those cells together. So there'd be quite a lot of resistance in the chain. So what I do is I solder the whole pack together, leave the balance leads on each cell, and then I've got individual chargers which I run off an individual LiPo each, so that none of them are connected. There's no common earth across the chargers, and then each charger can charge its own pack within that 14S block without affecting any others. So you just charge it through the balance leads, balance charge all the cells, and so I can go to any voltage doing that. Really, if I had 10 chargers at four cells per per charger or something.
Oh yeah, I seem to remember your old charging thing. Was it you that had the loads and loads of cheap chargers instead of buying sort of lots of
They're still working, yeah.
multi-chargers? It's just
Yeah,
loads
so
of
Right,
Yeah,
AC
you ready for this?
things.
Yeah, you'll hear the echoes just about now start to come.
425. 425.
That battery's dead. Next battery.
Wow.
That's mental.
What was that?
Not just empty, but on fire.
So what battery and speed was that?
That
one?
was about 260 miles an hour, I think 410 kilometers an hour or something. That was 6S, just with the 7.7 prop, so you can hear the supersonic tips there. It's everything I can give to a 7.7 prop, really. So
You can see that the FPV picture must have improved, because I remember just a few years back you were using trackers, because when you were testing speed, and obviously if you can see it, it looks speeded up because all these fields are just flowing past, and because it was going out of range so quickly, Rupert's tracker was just like, you could just see this big helical trying to follow it at this speed because it was so quick.
yeah, actually I just use a pair of Fat Shark goggles with a Fat Shark 1.3 receiver in them with a cloverleaf on it. That's all I use, because there's the least failure points in that. If I've got a ground station with a tracker, any one failure in that system could leave me without connection. So I just fly to the limits with that, and it's fine. So there's always a loss of picture because I use vertically polarized antennas in the fins of the plane. So when it turns back towards you, there's a no on the end of the aerial. So I always expect that when it turns that I'm going to lose the picture, but it comes back as it levels off. So
Right.
yeah,
Is it difficult to fit the larger antennas in the aircraft? They're actually structural in the plane instead of protruding out of it.
that's it. Yeah, but they're built into the fins, so I cut into the bottom of the fins and slotted them up in there. So there's nothing sticking outside the plane. Like drag is the number one battle. It's I can't remember what it goes up by a square of 4 or something to go. It's not a square route faster. It's you need 4 times as much power to go a bit faster. So
I think it would be interesting
love
to
the
see what
sound.
would happen to a 1.3 helical if you put it on that plane. It looked like some tree that was caught in a gale. It come just bent over in a little point.
Wouldn't be happy.
I put them on the rear hatch because I had a meltdown last time. It actually damaged the rear hatch a bit, and I wasn't happy with how it's clipping down. So I cleaned it with alcohol and I put some sellotape on it. And I tell you, the sellotape was stuck down good, real good. And when I landed the plane, the tape wasn't there anymore. So
Speed tape.
It was
Speed
stuck.
cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
Like, I wonder if the Menace Aeropod would survive you. Like, are you aware of these? I can.
What's
Well,
that?
that would only increase his drag, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He's already built
Well-
them into the fins.
Well, they're meant to be. Yeah, they're meant to be aerodynamic. Menace.
it's all about not wasting frontal area. So any space that you've got spare, if you can put something in that rather than having it sticking out.
It's like a bubble that sticks on the airframe, I think, the one that Jack's
Yeah.
talking about.
If you can put it
Yeah.
in the airframe, it's definitely better to. It makes a huge difference. Absolutely huge.
Have you got to the point where you're like trying different like surface treatments, like waxing it or something, just to see if it will reduce the skin
Yeah.
drag of it?
Not really.
There
I'm
you
just
go.
doing kind of big leaps at the moment. Really, there's no need to kind of go into for the finer details, really. It's just keep going up in power and stuff until I get to what I think's the limit, and then I guess start really trying to optimize it from there. But I think, I've been having a chat with a German motor builder who kind of dismissed my project pretty quickly, but I really would like to try and go 700 kilometers an hour. So, and he laughed, didn't think it was a very good idea. He suggested a way of doing it, but I didn't really want to go down that route. So,
rocket motors?
no, I think it can be. I think it can be done. It's just about drag. It's about getting, it's not always just about adding more power. There comes a point where, you've got to just try and get the plane as small as possible with as much power in it as possible. So that balance of it being able to land, really, that's the only limit is can you land it? The stall speed goes up and up and to the point where I'm landing at a full size airfield and it's a 600 meter runway and it looks small when you're coming in. It does, so it glides the stabilized approach. So I've kind of worked out how far away it's best, and it's about a kilometer at 100 kilometers an hour at 30 meters altitude, and it will glide in from there. So it'll do a kilometer at 30 meters altitude at 100 kilometers an hour before it's down to 60 where it stalls. So that's the amount of energy retention it's got.
So if you're looking at 700 mile an hour, can you really just eyeball? Oh, kilometers. Okay, yeah, that's not as hairy then. No. I was just wondering, what realm do you think? Well, this is about time to do some fluid simulations, and about time to go and buy my own personal mini wind tunnel. How long can you take it just eyeballing it?
Quite a long way still. I think it seems to be going up. I think what I need to do at this point though is kind of confirm the numbers a bit better, because there is some doubt. Certainly amongst the German speed community as to whether it's legitimate, because it's a GPS reading and they're saying I dived and things. So the next flight is about...
How much are you really getting diving?
Yeah, they dive and then they pull out and they fly through a 200 meter course. So I've got to get a reading across 200 meters using a couple of cameras and some Doppler readings and things just to put that to bed, really, because we've done it before with Doppler readings, always within... Because I'm flying a straight line, I'm not turning. I think everybody's used to GPS data loggers, and when you fly line of sight, obviously the GPS is getting a bad vector all the time and bad signal, so the readings are pretty corrupt. But when doing the kind of runs I'm doing, I'm in a straight line for 1.5 kilometers, and the reading is stable. It's going up pretty stable. There's no wild numbers, so for me it's accurate enough. But I think I need to sort of prove it on the next flight. So.
Yeah. I was going to say 700 miles an hour. You're going to need heat shielding.
Kilometers, he said.
Kilometers an hour. Yeah.
Everyone can hear the screaming in the background. There's no kids. That's his batteries.
I can't silence it.
Sorry, Curry. I cut you off.
Oh, and I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yeah, I'd say the Germans are such sticklers for rules, and unless it's the rule about not putting your towels on the sunbeds, of course.
I don't want to criticise the Germans. Without them, I couldn't do it. It's their propellers and their knowledge that I'm feeding off, really. So I can't design propellers.
I guess some of the problem is now just getting the right parts, because you're such at the sort of edge of what people are doing. It's not like we were saying this before. It's like if you want to build like a 6S or a 4S regular quad, it's easy. If you want to build X class, like Tony flies, you're very limited on the amount of motors that are there, the amount of ESCs there, and then it's big money to do it.
So he's using the top end X class APD 200 amp 14S stuff, and then he's talking about going up from that to a 24S, and that's not even X class kit anymore. That's like above what an X class would use.
Yeah, it's still APD. So it's just the next thing up that APD do. It's not. I think it's a similar size, but it's in an aluminium case, and they do 400 amp 16S, or I think it's 24S 200 amps or something. So.
Wow. Okay. I hadn't seen that part. Impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's all off the shelf stuff. So I'm living off other people's developments, really. I'm not making the motor, I'm not making the ESC, I'm not making the prop, I'm not making the plane, any of it. I'm just putting together stuff that's off the shelf. So it is a lot. Now,
the bit that really impresses me is you're doing all this totally manual. Like there's no flight controller, there's no oh shit, like please just like fly in a circle while I perspire and grab a glass of water. You're on the sticks all the time, and if you fail, the plane fails, right?
Yeah, for me, it's the other way around. it's very important that the plane doesn't fail. So the less I can have in the system, that's the reason for the goggles with the simple system. I've seen more crashes with flight controllers than I've seen of people just manually crashing a plane. I've seen all sorts go wrong. And also there's dynamics in the speed. It's going to go from a stall speed of 70 kilometers an hour to 500 kilometers an hour at the top. So where would you set the gains when you wanted it to take over? Because if it pulled the kind of gains it needed at, say, 200 kilometers an hour, if it pulled that much elevon in at 500 kilometers an hour, it would just fold up. So it would be more of a risk to have a flight controller.
It'd be complex to tune.
It very well. You don't. I wouldn't get any chances to tune it. That's the other thing. Every flight has got to be a record or something, because the battery is only going to last a couple of 3 flights. So I don't want to kind of waste it.
Well, you have to throw them away after.
Well, I'm about setting the top speed, so obviously if the battery's not performing as well as it could do, it's not worth it really. So I keep them fresh, and I heat them up before I go. So I heat them up on a hot water bottle in the van before I go, and that makes a big difference to performance.
Sensible.
Do you have like a beta frame that you just kind of, as in like a runabout that you just fly for fun without worrying about speed records, or is it that is what you do?
The one that Wayne saw is the one that I fly sort of just for a laugh, really.
The slow one.
Yeah. It's just over 100 miles an hour slower. So I don't know if I don't know if I could fly this 14S one line of sight. To be quite honest, I think it would be a real handful trying to land something from a kilometre away at 30 meters altitude. So
Especially when it's only like 2 foot wide.
It would be quite difficult. But ultimately, I would have to if there was an emergency. So I'd give it a go.
But these aren't the only FPV craft you've flown, and I've seen some lovely ones. I think a lot of people would have seen your awesome Spitfire videos. You've got some, although that Spitfire externally looked really beaten up, it looked gorgeous from the inside cockpit view, and I think it exploded. And then was it one called the Magnum, a real slow flyer that you used to take around sort of just car parks and random places? Roop's done the sort of things that we might do, sort of like bandoing on quads, but just with planes instead, which is nice and slow flying. Because I remember I said to you, I was like, "Oh, this looks good to get. Is it any good in the wind?" And you said, "No."
No.
If someone breathes, it's like forget it. But
on those days where it's right for that, it is the most fun you can have. Honestly, it can put it anywhere you like, and it's just flexible, and you can just fire it through gaps, and it doesn't matter if it hits it. And they're good fun. The Magnums are, but. There's many different thrills you can have, isn't there? You can have a thrill at 10 miles an hour, and it's a different thrill at 300 miles an hour. It's very short and panicky. It's kind of over before you know it. So
why do you do it to yourself?
I don't know if I could call it fun at that point. It really is exciting, but I don't know if it's fun in the same way that just chucking a plane about is. It's.
What sort of range do you get off the 1.3 gig setup? Is it problematic at all, or is it fine for the runs you do?
The range, so happily to kind of 2 or 3 kilometers. So one of the things I do with the plane, any of the speed planes before I fly them, is a physical range test. So we go at our local model club, there's a hill that's 3 kilometers away, so we take the plane up on the hill and have the transmitter and the goggles on the ground and do kind of range checks, turning the plane upside down and everything, make sure it all works, and it's fine at 3 kilometers. So I've not been out that far doing a run yet, but
well, I think your
and then
battery
just
will wear
like
out if you
crossfire
want to get
for
back
the
again.
control link.
What's that, sorry?
Crossfire or something for the control link on 900?
Easy UHF.
Oh wow!
From the old days.
It's got the most penetration, the most range.
Yeah, old is gold.
Yeah,
So
it's simple.
A lot of
worries about
people would
clouds of mist.
complain that 433 is a bit technical, and if you've got your antennas wrong, and you can cock it up, but it's working. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it.
If you get it right, it works really well. Yeah, and again, that's another reason for not having excess electronics in the plane. I'd like to have a data logger in there, but again, that's just more noise for the UHF. So the less that's in there, the better, really. And it does work very well. So I've been to, well, no, I can't really say the distance, but yeah, 1,300 meters probably. At least that far. So.
You had a friend who flew how far? Not in this country?
Yeah, I did. I saw somebody once fly sort of 20 kilometers or something away, so that worked really well. So.
That's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Must have been in
Maybe.
France.
Yeah.
It's over
Good
the
old
sea.
Gillingham.
No, isn't it a shame for the laws? Because I really, really would like to take this plane somewhere flat, put it 5 miles away, and then just fly a whole battery back at 3 feet off the ground. You know, what a video that would make and what fun it'd be. But I can't legally do it. I can't ask for permission to do it. You know, it's not even feasible to do
Need
it.
to get some like
Utah.
salt flats somewhere.
Yeah.
Perhaps one day one of us would just find an SD card on the floor which that sort of footage is on, and we can share it. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
I found this, honestly.
Probably you find some beach areas and mud flats, estuaries, and stuff like that where you might get a good run.
It's landing it. It's having a runway that's 600 meters long and flat. You know, it's coming in at 60 kilometers. It stalls at 60 kilometers an hour. So it needs a pretty nice surface to drop on. So
See, the thing is, with a lot of like planes or quads, you can be quite subtle. You can find an area where perhaps you're not meant to be, and you can sneak off in there, and you can do a couple of flights, and you can come back and like, hee hee, no one saw me. People in the next county along can hear your plane, so it's not like you can just sneak off. Like in news reports, like mountains of complaints from some unexplained noises coming from this area of woodland.
Get
The
MOD
beast of
coming out
whatever,
to
some
investigate
banshee
reports of
scream.
missiles and things. Yeah.
You want a nice farmer with a field on the coast somewhere, so you can just like go out to sea and blast it.
I spend about an hour a night on Google Earth just going around the country and seeing. The trouble is, airfields would have been perfect. All the World War II airfields would have been perfect, but they're solar farms and housing estates now. So,
What about Camber Sands? Nice stretch of
Croydon?
beach there.
Camber Sands. So there'll be people on the sands with and sand. I don't know how.
Well, I've been there early enough on a summer's morning where there's no one there.
Really? Okay, yeah, maybe. I think somewhere I'd like to go somewhere with some perspective, some scale to it, so you could fly over a derelict town or something like that, so that you could see the buildings going past, because it does just look like a full-size plane when you're flying at that speed. The perspective it doesn't look that fast, until you go past a car or something. But when you see my fan below, it's tiny, it just doesn't make any sense. So I'd like to get some perspective into it and get a better video next time. So
Unidentified flying Rupert. Richard Warwick was recommending the Speed Flea, which has got a GPS on it as well.
Still GPS, isn't it?
Yeah. I've got one of those, but I've had readings that are just absurd with it, so I can't really rely on it. I don't know, because I was flying at line of sight again, so I got readings of 350 miles an hour out of a fun jet, so it's not realistic.
So did they want basically basically 2 posts where you can have some laser or something to record? You went from there to there. It's a set distance, therefore your speed is this.
Yeah. What we're going to do this time is put 2 GoPros on their back, 200 meters apart. We'll sync them up first, walk them out on the runway and put them on their back, and then I'll fly over the top of them. Hopefully we'll see the plane in a frame. We'll also hear the peak of the sound as it goes overhead, so we should be able to get a time between those. And we'll put another one at the end of the runway, so 600 meters. So I'm going to try and do the whole runway 600 meters at 500 kilometers an hour, average 500 over it. So, and that would kind of put that to bed really. And then
Do you make sure you go out when there's like zero wind, or do you have any tailwind, or do you go against wind? Do you just when I gather the kind of balls to go and do it, really. It simply happens. I'm like, right, today I've got to do this, tomorrow or whatever. It's got to happen. So, and actually, having spoken to some of these German speed guys, they're saying that they've seen differences of 100 kilometers an hour between meteorological conditions. So. He was saying that relative humidity apparently is the biggest factor to look at. That and the day we did this 500 kilometers an hour was, you can see how humid it was. It was, it was thick cloud at 300 meters, and it was a pretty sort of misty day. So there could be a lot to come from flying on a hotter day where the air's thinner and it's less humid.
Oh, really?
So
Less to punch through.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. So the drag is more important than the thrust. You lose a bit of thrust, but obviously that drag is.
Better for your RF reception as well.
Yeah.
Propped Up asks, do you have to do 2 runs or just 1?
I think have to is there's no real official record for it. And I think it just started on FPV Lab. There was a sort of forum thread, and it was your personal bests, basically everybody's sort of furthest distance and higher speed and stuff. And
it was that ladder board that I was blown away by the speed people were getting, and I kind of worked my way up it, and then unfortunately that stopped. So the kind of competition sort of when the regulations came, and I don't think people wanted to publish how far they were going, how high they were going. So that kind of stopped. So I only really fly on those rules. It's GPS ground speed, so you kind of got to be level at the time of the reading. You can be downwind because it's about flying like a fighter jet, isn't it? So if you want to use the wind, you can use the wind, but it means you've got to launch on a windy day and things. So there are no rules, but other people in different speed spheres have rules, and I kind of want to do something that relates to their rules so that I don't get kind of laughed at.
So there's no official body that's trying to jump in here. I mean, Guinness would be the obvious one, but is there anything in the Model Flying Association that encourages this, or is it all just dubious because of the line of sight requirements and spotting?
I don't think this is encouraged.
No,
that's why it's so much fun.
It's kind of a shame because it's a great technology showcase.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'd like to. I really would like something to come of it. Somebody to contact me and say, "Hey, we'd like you to do this," or "We'd like to supply batteries," or just maybe some help with it somewhere. For the next project. I think I'm going to maybe do a video and just sort of say that this next one's going to be more expensive and time consuming, and I'd like some sort of help, with it from, like you were saying, do I need to do more aerodynamics? So I'd like to get somebody involved that knows about aerodynamics. I don't want to. It's too much learning to really know what you're doing. I'd be just stabbing a stick at it, really, in terms of what you need to know to get aerodynamics right. So it'd be nice to get somebody involved in that and somebody to help build it as well. Somebody that's good at composites and somebody to supply batteries, maybe. Just make it a better project, more than I can afford. Maybe.
So what is your airframe? Is it still foam at the moment, or have you got a carbon fiber airframe? What is
it's fiberglass for reasons of the video. I think anything I've tried with carbon fiber is not so great with the video. So just fiberglass hollow. It's a single layer of fiberglass, then Airex foam, and then another thin layer of fiberglass over it. So it's not just a thin layer of fiberglass; it's actually quite structural. So, but the plane was only really designed for 150 miles an hour when it was when the guy made it. So it's got to be getting close to what it'll stand, I think.
Snapping.
Yeah.
Do you notice any resonance? Do you notice vibrations start to build up when you take the speed up then?
No, none at all so far. There is a yaw wiggle on it for some reason. It's always had that at any speed. I don't really know what it is. I've had some aerodynamicists talk about divergent kind of drag or something potentially coming off the step in the wing, but it doesn't really seem to affect it. But it's definitely not any kind of flutter, which would be immediately.
Have you had any kind of high speed failures? You find a weak link in the chain when you take these things up to the intended speed, or has it been pretty good?
I did to start with, and I think that I learned pretty quickly that you've got to make stuff much, much stronger than it needs to be in order not to come across those problems, because that will just wreck the whole project. So I had servos kind of not being strong enough and stuff, and quickly kind of just went for the best that I can fit in there.
What type of brands of servos are you going for these days then?
So for 200 miles an hour, there's a lot really. I mean, Servos I've always stuck by, but I had a Servos fail recently that put a Spitfire through my girlfriend's car window. So
Oops.
yeah. So I don't know.
Got a girlfriend.
I don't recommend those anymore. But yeah, for the top end, it's MKS, which is what I don't know if people would have seen Spencer Lisenby's glider record, the DS glider, which puts my record into absolute. It's kids' games compared to what he's doing. He is line of sight flying at 545 miles an hour.
Yes, we've seen
Over
that.
1,000.
This is the guys doing
I think we showed the
dynamic
video.
soaring.
It's just bizarre, the dynamic soaring thing, how it just keeps accelerating and like weird.
He did a TED talk about some of the things involved with that, and with the best servos, the best radio, the minimum latency you can have is you've got to see the plane, you've got to think about it, you've got to put the input in the controller, that's got to get to the plane, it's got to be, the servo's got to move and everything, and his latency in that respect is 100 meters. So whatever happens, he's got to be 100 meters ahead of it because it's already happened by the time he's calculated and it's got to the plane.
Oh my god. When this reaches 88 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Great Scott.
yeah, mind blown. It puts what I do into insignificance really, and it's amazing, absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. So,
Looks like he's got it on a
0.1
big
watt.
rope and he's just
Yeah.
wheeling it round his head.
Yeah.
Some
You
kind of
can imagine
magic
he's
invisible rope.
He's essentially got 3 meter propeller, I think it's 4 meter propeller blades and a 80-mile-an-hour wind to use on them. So it's actually, I think if you calculated that in watts that it's able to use, it's probably quite a lot, I should think.
Right, we're going to have to get through some questions because we've only got 10 minutes left. Badger FPV asks if you could you do peak FPV signal strength like Cereva does in lap timing?
I don't know whether that would work. I don't know how fast that reacts.
I'll step in there and say it probably would work, but it would mean you're then having to engineer a 1.3 gigahertz lap timer, and we've only just got hold of like 5.8 gigahertz.
You'd also
lap
have to
timers.
fly a preset course through flags, which might be a little tricky.
That's what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to try and fly it right over the top of the camera, so hopefully I can point it where I want it. I mean, I can fly a pretty tight line with it, so I just stay high at the moment just to avoid problems. It was just trying to get the speed, so this time we'll try and get the speed and try and be 3 foot off the ground, hopefully. So
looking forward to the noise from the GoPro.
yeah.
Caroline Taylor asks, ever considered a variable pitch prop?
Yes, definitely. I'd be interested in that, but how it would be possible at that sort of power level in something that small, I don't know. It doesn't seem.
Ask the heli guys.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. I guess heli equipment, like tail equipment, probably would be the best place to start looking. I don't know why it hasn't been done already. I haven't seen it in the German speed planes are the kind of benchmark of what's fast in electric, and I haven't seen them using that kind of technology. So I don't know. Maybe they haven't thought of. They must have thought of it, but maybe they just haven't implemented it yet. But they've probably tried, I would think.
Badger RC says, have you contacted the FAI for ratification?
No, it wouldn't be legal for that. I think there's certain stipulations in that mean it wouldn't be legal. There's classes in the FIA that would.
So Frank, is it the visual line of sight must be a max of 400 meters or something? Is that the deal for this?
I mean, there is the guidance that there's 500 meters is generally accepted to be the extent of visual line of sight, but there are things like they do say in the guidance, like if it's kind of dusky and you've got LEDs on it, so you'll be able to see it further away than that. So that there isn't like a hard limit if you can justify it. Like a bigger aircraft, you can see that further away. So it's not
if you
like
had some nice
500
bright
meters
wingtip LEDs potentially, that would actually be a legal flight then.
Yeah.
Which you could take to 10K, as previously mentioned.
Shady says, set up a race with Top Gear.
That would be cool. That's what I'd like to come from it. I'd like somebody to say, hey, can you bring your plane here and do a demo? I'd love it. I would love it. But
yeah, something like over in Dubai, racing Bugatti, something like what can go faster.
Races there on.
It better be quick.
Double A asked slip. I don't know what that is in reference to. Magical Pencil asks, what is the best crash you've ever had?
I had one recently with a Funjet that was only probably 120 miles an hour, but I hit the ground at 120 miles an hour, kissed the ground, and the battery was 100 meters away from where the plane landed. 100 meters, quite a long way.
Is it like a crater?
What shape was the battery when you found it?
Still working. It's a lithium arm pack.
Wow.
6S lithium arm pack. It must have, when the plane hit the ground, it must have trebucheted out the back of it and done it in a single lob. So, yeah.
Jeez.
Wonderful.
But yeah, nothing really spectacular fast crashes or anything, because I just kind of build stuff strong and it doesn't go wrong. So nothing really too bad.
Shady asks, do you still see Mark, Charlie, Jeff and Kev?
No, sadly I don't. I would love to. I still speak to Mark on Facebook sometimes. I think the story was their work schedules changed, and I think there was some trouble with the farm. It all got a bit popular, you know. It was just the 4 guys to start with, and then it was kind of 12 or 15 people turning up, and I think and then the farmer started charging for the field and things, and I think it all changed, and they got fed up with it. And to be fair to Mark, he was editing the video a week and answering every single message, and I think he's got a young lad. Yeah, he's got a young lad, and I think it's too much.
Oh yeah, he said he was getting like 100 gigabytes of footage because he was just like going out for hours and just filming and just having to edit that.
It was so much fun though. I can't, I can't say how much fun that was. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Really, I think that's the thing, isn't it?
I still watch them every now and again if I want to chuckle.
Yeah.
Caroline Taylor asks, slowing down, tried streamer deploy?
Yes, more. Yeah, it would be nice, but more stuff on board, and how do you deploy it, and what mechanism, and just more problems. So, just the minimum.
Got the prop out the back as well.
Minimum stuff. So that's one of the problems I've got now is that the prop I was using before was a fixed blade prop. So when I was landing, that was windmilling, so it was acting as a brake. But now it's a folding prop, which is why I've got this ridiculous landing approach now, because there's nothing to slow it down. So I think on the next project, if I'm going to do this 24S project, it's going to have some kind of flat that lifts up or split ailerons or something. Maybe 2 sets of elevons, split ailerons. So.
Just fire a shoot out of it.
Any pillboxes in that field you're flying from? You can sit in there. I would be in there. Failing that, all behind Jack. Probably hiding behind Jack. I would be.
Don't blame you, mate. Don't blame you.
But I do love the sound.
I think you should also get a pulse meter on you for next time, just to see what it says. I think our pal Bruno used to do this when he was trying to fly high-speed stuff, and it was high. And I mean, I stood behind him. I could see his legs shaking as well, which is always quite an indication that he might be quite scared at the time.
There was a PR for Betaflight, to add that into the on-screen display. Heart rate meter. A genuine code contribution.
Now, I've always noticed this, because sometimes when I go out and fly, I walk and I put my Apple Watch on to record my steps and my heartbeat. And sometimes I forget to turn it off. And I'm packing up my stuff and my heart rate is still I'm at 150. That's interesting. That must have been quite exciting. Or I'm really unfit. One of the two.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be just one?
Bruno was a legend, really, wasn't he? He was he was kind of inspirational to me with his jet-powered fun jet and things. It really that's why I built the jet plane. Really, he did it, and I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I want to do that. So, and his heart rate monitor thing was brilliant as well. It really added to the videos, I think.
I thought so.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty rubbish at tech, actually, so I don't know if I could even do that, to be honest.
He had all the fun of building launcher. Launchers are great because at least 2 in 10 times they will fail, and it's just like just slow, off the end of the launcher.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's all happening 2 foot off the ground with the launcher for a period of time. It's 2 foot off the ground near its stall speed, so they're a real risky option, I think.
Yeah.
That's why this vert launch is really good if you can do it,
Yeah, I guess it's complicated in the fact you need like multiple people and lots of moving parts, but easier if you can get it up there.
Yeah.
Propped up FPV with that heli prop, it'll be spinning mast that would be the problem, I think.
More mechanical gubbins being spun around.
Yeah, Double A. So did he say what it was like in the future yet? Shady goes, how's Adele? Does she still go flying with you?
She's great, thank you. She's very well, and she does still come flying with me. I got her an ornithopter, which is a brushless powered flapping bird, which is great. Cool. She does that.
Cool.
Yeah. So we don't get to do it so much these days, obviously with a youngster in tow, but he'll get there. He's saying the word aeroplane now, so we're getting there.
Promising.
Yeah.
Frank?
Sooner or later, he's just going to be going 400 mile an hour, Daddy, 400 mile an hour.
Yeah, so slow. All right, guys, that is all we've got time for. But Rupert, thank you so much for coming along and and joining us, and you're sharing your incredible flights, and we hope for many more successful records. Think of us and keep us updated. And
Good luck.
Yeah, if you want any of our stickers to then stick on your airplane, and then you have them peel off due to excess speed, let us know.
Slow it down.
Yes. You've been joined by Curry Kitten.
Goodbye.
Oh my Google bird, or Rupert.
Wow, look at that monster.
He's holding up a big
14S
old 14S
battery
that has what only can be described as about 6 balance leads hanging off it. And what connector?
EC5. It's not many. It's only 170 amps, so it's not too
Only. You've been joined by Stephen.
Cheers. Thanks.
My darling wife.
Bonjour.
Our Lord and Master Andrew / Frank.
Bye.
And I've been Bright to the Fly. Thank you guys. Good night. And
Bye.
thanks all our
Bye.
patrons.
Bye bye.
Bye.
We have also had delivery of scarves. I think they're mostly accounted for, but get in touch if you want a scarf. Bye.
Good job, Frank.